the seed drill. Okay. Do I have to open the lid myself? Okay. There we go. Start seeds. I might not have been pulled up outside the shed correctly. Set that there. Obviously it's a worker, so we're going to have to come back and tidy up when it's done. So, put that there. I'll jump out and check the before it was fallow. That's interesting. Oilseed and fallow, oilseed and cereal. Previous was cereal. So we're going to put canola on this one. It's very strange. I have no idea how I've ended up with a fallow field, but this needs to be going to go wheat because we have chickens. Go tractor. Thank you. And helper. No helper. Yay. Okay, so we'll leave that on a helper, which is awesome. Get this truck moved out the way so we can finish off the potatoes ourselves. So obviously, oops, the plan here is we'll get our fields planted. That one, yeah, I missed that. Oh, it didn't turn on. That field is going to be wheat, so that we have something to feed our chickens next year. Or potentially the third year. We're not playing a third year on this playthrough. The field to the left of where we were, which is already cultivated, is going to be planted with canola. And then the third field is going to be something else, but probably a spring crop rather than a winter crop, because I really don't think I've got time to plough in the what is it, oilseed radish, and get another crop in. So that's all fine. I did not check. Canola's 5 degrees, wheat's 5 degrees, we're good. 7 and 8 at the moment. So we're good for planting and germinating, hopefully. I hope I get this in the ground in the right time, because I think we had that was part of our problem we had on Oakfield Farm. Was I mowed the grass on the very last day of the season, and so winter came along and the grass died and never re-established itself because I'd cut it too close to the line. And potentially I am planting this too close. And we may get complete failure to germinate. I'm really not doing... that wasn't too bad actually. I think I missed with the topper. So our percentage complete is going up with both the collection of the potatoes and the delivery of potatoes. So, and there's still a couple of rows left. It's already 4:15. Oh, we are fighting time here. Though as far as the contract is concerned, we can still harvest potatoes. Potatoes can be harvested all the way through to early winter. So I've still got more days to harvest, I just don't have any more days to plant. So it's not as bad as I thought. However, I haven't checked the weather report. I have a feeling we are expecting snow very soon. Weather report, that's there. Clouds for today, cloudy tomorrow. Tomorrow evening the snow starts. And the ground is going to be frozen. That might be a problem. As I said, she's offered her dancing class. She's definitely picked up at school. She was basically not doing any of her homework for the first week, and we caught that because there was parent-teacher conferences, and she was saying, well, I've only been here a week, so you don't have to just, visit with my teachers. They sort of, yeah, we're not that stupid. It turned out we needed to. And so that's now all sorted out, and she's actually got into the swing of school at home. She's on a IEP, individual education plan, because she is quite significantly behind in reading. But being in the foster care system, moving around between families, we're kind of thinking that, every time she moved to a new school, and I've had the experience before, not from moving to a new school, but seeing kids move into a new school, and a teacher's got 30 students who are at a certain level and a new student comes in. And if the new student can't keep up, then the teacher is more inclined to concentrate on the 30 kids who've been in the class since the beginning of the year than they are to give special treatment to the one who just arrived. So we kind of think that's why her reading fell behind. But we have grammar classes and spelling classes that we purchased online for her. And she's doing okay with that, and strongly encourage that she needs to catch up, because if she doesn't, she's not going to understand what's going on in her other classes. It's kind of okay if you fall behind in science, because that's not critical, but if you fall behind in math, which she hasn't, or English, which she has, that's a problem, because if you're not reading at your grade level, you're not going to understand the questions that are being asked of you in your science class, your technology class, your history class, and that is a big deal. And it's probably why your typical foster child isn't doing well in education-wise. Not because they can't, but because they've fallen so far behind and the teachers aren't giving them the things they need to catch up. I think pretty much every child we've had through our house has had an IEP, because they're not up to grade level in something. But it's having the opportunity to help them. We've had a lot of kids come through our place who, 2-3 months, it's not enough time for us to invest in their education and get them up to speed. Kate's aiming to be permanent, and we've got some more documents to sign tomorrow on that account. So she will, it's much more worth our while, both financially and time-wise, to invest in her education because she needs it. Okay, let's run down here and pick up some bits because it's bugging me. And OCD farmer needs to OCD farm. This is probably about as far as I go. Oh no, there's tons of bits of potato we missed everywhere, but that'll do for now. Oh, okay, guess that will do for now because we filled it up. But she's certainly pulled her grades up. She's getting A's, B's and C's rather than E's and F's and D's. So this is not going to fill us up. We are close. We still have a ton more potatoes over there. I think we'll turn around and go back to the main block. Stop. Oh, brakes on the truck. Lousy. Yeah, I think my biggest gripe with farm sim and wear and tear is doing a potato contract with rental equipment, like we're doing here. If we weren't playing with seasons, this particular harvester would probably be 0% maintenance now, and I would have to spend my own money, probably getting on for £15,000 to take it back to fully maintained. So while you can do some big contracts, it can cost you a lot of money to fix the equipment if it's not yours, which detracts from the income from the contract. A little bit of that, and a little bit of that, and a little bit of that. Okay, let's get this thing turned around. And back we go down here. As our workers already used 71% of the seed tank, but it's still going, so that's a good thing. Now we're going to get diminishing returns on each of these rows. I think since everything at the end of this is going to be hours, I will take time. I'll probably do a fast run down the field, find a patch of potatoes, harvest it, rather than keeping the harvester running and sitting at 6 miles an hour. Just to clean up. potatoes. Definitely not something I do normally. Pays well. Pays awesome. But with the time 5 clock running, it's taken us, as I said, 2 days to get this far. And there are still going to be some potatoes left in the ground at the end of the day that are ours, so I won't be able to claim the contract. We do this load and we're going to have to run the truck back to the store. We'll do that bit. And pull this enough out. The edge of this field drops off quite quickly. And re-engage the harvester, off we go again. So a couple of videos dropped today from a couple of my favourite farmers. Millennial Farmer is getting really annoyed with his air cart fertiliser setup. It appears to be one of the airlines is blocked, so it's not blowing fertiliser out the end, so he's not fertilising his field, which is annoying him. National Lockdown 1/2021. Quite possibly. I'm kind of wondering how that's going to work. For Michigan, because yeah, Biden says he wants a national lockdown, but I think someone pointed out to him, you're the president and you don't actually have that authority. Because he later came back and said, I'm going to work with the governors to get a national lockdown. Well, that's nice, but our governor in Michigan has basically been told, you're overstepping your bounds and you're not allowed to do that. So, she can sort of say to Biden, well, I'd kind of like to, but unfortunately, the courts have said I'm not allowed to. So how do you expect to get around that? And I think there's one, maybe two other states where the whole lockdown and mask mandate was challenged, and the courts came back and basically said, you governors don't have the authority to do that. Now, I will say that the president probably does have the authority to say you can't enter a federal building without a mask. But if you don't want to go into a federal building, you don't need to wear a mask. He can't say state buildings need to enforce that. He can't say that retail outlets or other businesses you visit need to enforce that. But it'll be kind of interesting to see how this all plays out. Because in the case of Michigan, it was that was triggered by a federal court because some doctors went to federal court, and I think they were basically suing on the governor does not have the right to lock down the entire state, especially since, and I've heard this from a couple of people now, a member of their family was diagnosed with cancer in February, and then the lockdown happens. So the doctors are basically, well, we know they have cancer, but we need to get in there and do some scans and everything else, and we can't do the scans because that department's locked down because it's not an essential. And so you've got somebody who's got cancer, can't get the scans to find out where the cancer is. Even if they could, they can't get chemotherapy or radiation treatment or anything else because those departments are locked down. And it's now, 8 months later, and at least one of the people I've heard of, it's sort of, if he doesn't get into a hospital now, he's got months to live. And so these doctors had basically challenged the whole lockdown thing in federal court. And the federal court district, which covers Michigan, the judges there basically said, well, we want to determine under what basis the governor has locked down. So we need a determination of what that law means, and Michigan state courts have not ruled on that. So they kicked a question off to the Michigan state courts and says, what's your determination on the meaning of this law and how it pertains to what the governor's doing? Which is why that got bumped up to sort of, we need to hear this case right now because the feds are asking for it. And so we got the ruling very, very quickly. And there were a couple of challenges in state court, but they weren't moving. But as soon as the Fed said, hey, you guys, we got a question here and it needs to be answered before we can make a ruling. Michigan State Court made the ruling on behalf of the federal question. Oh, there we go. We just made £15,000 from the excess potatoes there. So that's a good deal. Let's go fill this truck up. And try not to run over the people or crash into the truck. But that's where the ruling of the governor does not have the right to legislate came from. Because, and again, that's because that's enshrined in the state constitution. Not all states have a constitution that says the governor cannot legislate, the judicial branch cannot legislate, because all the Michigan court could do was to say this law is unconstitutional. They couldn't strike it off the books because that's a legislative act, and the judiciary does not have the right to enable legislative acts. So whereas the US Supreme Court might be able to strike down a law and basically say this law is unconstitutional, it's gone, Michigan State Court can't do that because the three arms of US government are distinct and have discrete powers that the others can't step on. So all the judiciary said is this: we determine this law is unconstitutional. It should never have been passed in 1945. And now the legislature needs to strike it off the books because we're not allowed to. Okay, we are done with that. Back to the harvester. The planter is still doing the planty thing. So let's get the wheels rolling on this thing. But that's basically, an exception in Michigan. Now, as I said, other states might have different rules, which means that their legislature is allowed to bestow legislative powers on the governor for a defined emergency. But Michigan, you cannot. that's the fun of the legal system in America. I used to listen to a talk show host whose profession was law, although he would freely admit that he wasn't particularly good at it, and he actually passed his bar exam high on cocaine at the time, I believe it was. But, you know, he does talk shows on law, among other things, and his regular just sort of news of the day talk show, he does get into legal issues that come up. And one of the things he's said, frequently is the laws as passed aren't are usually fairly simple. Where the lawyers come in is questioning if a law is applicable in a certain situation. And then that's where law starts getting interesting. And there was one he brought up years ago about a law that was passed in Texas, where basically the legislature said it's illegal to for high school cheerleading squads to do suggestive dances in their cheerleading. And you think, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But it got challenged, and the judge basically said, what is the definition of a suggestive dance? I need something concrete. I can't just say, conceptually a sexual dance or a suggestive dance. I need, if you're doing this, then it's on the wrong side of that line, and if you're doing this, that's on the right side of the line. You can't just say a suggestive dance is illegal. And the law basically got struck down because, as the judge rightly pointed out, your idea of a suggestive dance is not my idea of a suggestive dance. So there is no concrete, statute that you can say, up to this point is fine, over this point is bad. Speeding is easy. Speeding on a highway, if the speed limit is 70 miles an hour, if you're doing less than 70 miles an hour, you're not breaking the law. If you're doing over 70 miles an hour, you are breaking the law. Now, the cops might not stop you if you're doing 72.5 miles an hour, but they could, because you're breaking the law doing 72.5 miles an hour on a highway. So, as I said, if you're doing 72.5 miles an hour on a highway and a cop stops you, and you don't have a leg to stand on because you were breaking the law. So that's kind of where the law gets interesting, is where, what's the barrier, what's the line? And which side of the line did you just fall? Well, I think, let me look at the map, see how we did. There's the potatoes there. There's a bit there, there's a bit there. Frankly, I think I'm kind of done. We'll take this over to the truck, unload it, and get the rest of our money and get paid for the contract. Oops. Put down there. Oh, I found the bits that I missed. Okay, we'll do that bit. We'll do that bit. Anyway, we'll see what happens when it happens as it happens, I guess. Because technically, until oh, what is it? The Electoral College makes their selections. The president has not been finalised. I did hear a Wisconsin legislature saying earlier this week that the state's electors should elect who they feel like. And frankly, no, that's not